Today's story is incredibly gruesome. This story deals with the reality of why certain animals belong in the wild or at a zoo, and not necessarily in our homes. I love all kinds of animals though, and there's a great reason why we're able to get up close with dogs and not cougars. For the most part, we know what we get when we get a dog, a companion. On the other side though, you don't know what you're getting when you're taking that monkey from the jungle and placing it in your living room. When you're taking that lion from the savannah and putting it in your kitchen. Something bad's about to happen, and this story is just one of those instances where something really bad did happen. I hope you guys enjoy this story. Trigger warning, there's some pretty graphic material in here, so viewer discretion is advised. And as always guys, I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Sandra Harold, or as many know her as Sandy, was a woman who lived a life of lots of highs and lows. Sandy, after going in and out of so many marriages, finally settled on the one, her husband named Jerry. The two of them would finally settle down at 241 Rock Rimmon Road in Stamford, Connecticut. The two of them would own and operate a towing company together, and own several dogs, several horses, and own a very large property with lots of land for these animals. Sandy also had a daughter from a previous marriage, and that daughter's name is Sue. The mother and daughter bond between the two of them was nothing short of amazing. They loved each other's company so much and would occasionally travel for semi-professional barrel racing excursions together. Sue also helped out at the towing shop as well, so even the time away from home, she was still with her mom at work. So you can imagine how incredibly devastated Sandy was when she found out that Sue would be moving away for a bit to marry a man from the towing shop. With the departure of her daughter on the horizon, a void opened up in Sandy, a void that needed to be filled. While at a rodeo with her friend Charla Nash, Sandy spotted a young chimpanzee wearing an all-cowboy outfit and riding horseback. She ended up going backstage to meet the little guy and hopefully feed him some gummy worms, in which she accomplished. The chimpanzee climbed all over Sandy, and Sandy loved that chimpanzee right back. This one interaction was one of the first times in a long while where that sad, gaping hole in Sandy's heart was filled with a furry little primate. It's very easy to pinpoint right when Sandy's obsession for owning a chimpanzee began, and a couple years down the road, Sandy made it out to be her reality to own one. With her husband out on a business trip and Sue moved away, Sandy packed her bags and flew to Festus, Missouri to pick up a companion that she thought would change her life for the better, to which it did, but also the worst. While in Festus, which is about 35 miles south of St. Louis, Sandy met up with a chimpanzee breeder who was holding her soon-to-be family member. He was wrapped in a warm towel with a diaper wrapping its bottom. His hairy face, dark brown eyes, and huge Dumbo ears protruded from the blanket, looking up at Sandy. The breeder handed Sandy the baby chimpanzee, still wrapped in its warm towel, and Sandy immediately bawled tears of joy. The doors to her real-life horror story have now began. For an adoption fee of $50,000, Sandy Harold was now the mother of a baby chimpanzee that she would later name Travis.
A woman in Connecticut remains hospitalized in critical condition this morning after being viciously mauled by a chimpanzee on Monday, and police are still trying to determine what set off the attack.
He's killing my friend!
Who's killing your friend?
Get my chimpanzee!
From the moment Travis was introduced to the Stamford community, he was loved endlessly. He was a hit. He was what Stamford was known for at the time. Travis had his own deck constructed above the family tow shop, and up there he would just chill and do a bunch of monkey activities. Travis would also ride shotgun with Jerry, as the two of them would go on side missions collecting cars around Stamford. In the early years of owning Travis, Sandy said people would literally melt when they saw him, just because of how sweet and gentle he was for being a chimpanzee. Travis loved people, and he loved the attention he got even more. At this point in the whole Travis timeline, a little bit of time has passed, and by now, Sue actually ended up divorcing her first husband and moved into a loft apartment back in Stamford, Connecticut that was right next to her family's towing shop. As expected, Sandy was full of joy. She was so happy that her daughter was back, and they immediately picked up right where they last left off. They talked, they gossiped, and Sandy grew closer to her grandchild named Tyler, who she didn't have much of a connection with when Sue left. Getting back to Travis, Travis grew very quickly. He was able to do a lot more than what you could probably believe. Travis ate his oatmeal with a spoon, put on his own clothes, rode a bike, cut grass, poured his own juice and soda, and oftentimes turned on the ignition to a lot of the family's cars, including the brand new Corvette. If you were to ask Sandy, she would tell you that these days were quote-unquote the best days of her life. Unfortunately, that would soon change.
Tiptoe through the window, by the window, that's where I'll be.
Sue, after not staying all that long in Stamford, would meet another man and marry him. The two of them would later relocate to North Carolina. Sandy, of course, was pretty upset about this matter. She not only didn't like the fact that her daughter was moving away for the second time, but she also did not like the man that she decided to marry. That summer, Sue would drive from Stamford to North Carolina to bring back all of her belongings into her new house. Sometime among her travels, on a cool September night, Sue, who took a Percocet earlier in the day to cope with her really bad back pain at the time, veered off a highway in rural Virginia and collided with a tree. She was ejected from her seat and killed. On the day of Sue's funeral, you could spot Sandy crying in a corner and trying to block certain people from seeing her daughter. She had a deep hatred for her daughter's husband, claiming, quote-unquote, if it wasn't for him, she'd still be alive. In the months and years following Sue's death, Sandy would fall in and out of depression and failed trying to maintain her relationships with their grandchildren. She, on multiple occasions, even contemplated suicide. From this point forward, Sandy was only seen with her husband, Jerry, and Travis, as they were really the only family she had at this point. As previously stated, Travis was growing rather quickly. He was through his early years of childhood, through puberty, and was kind of entering his early years of adolescence. It was right around this time when Travis's first accident occurred. While at their house watching the 2003 World Series, as a Cubs fan, very sore subject, the Harold family decided to make a quick trip to the tow shop. Travis hopped in the back of the car, Sandy rode shotgun, and Jerry was in the driver's seat. While the trio was stopped at a red light, out of nowhere, some civilian threw an empty soda bottle through the half-open window and beamed Travis right in the head. Obviously, this pissed Travis off. He unlocked the car door, activated apeshit mode, and began knuckle running across the intersection trying to chase the man who threw it. Fortunately for the man, Travis did not catch him. For several hours, Travis held up Stamford traffic. Travis evaded the police, and when they finally caught him and threw him in the back of the car, he ever so conveniently unlocked the car door and escaped again. He knuckle ran all the way across the intersection in his extra large adult diaper, and it wasn't until Travis himself got in the back of the car, buckled himself in, to which the police could finally get traffic flowing again. Fortunately for the Harolds, no charges were pressed, and several of the police officers that knew Travis personally said that his overall attitude was just playful. Although the Harolds were incredibly fortunate to not have any charges pressed against them, this incident did put eyes on Travis in a negative light. Soon after this incident, a law passed in Connecticut ultimately banning the ownership of any primate weighing more than 50 pounds, and at the time, Travis weighed 200 pounds. The Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection did not enforce this law on the Harolds because they owned Travis for such a long time and deemed that Travis did not pose as a safety risk to the community. I mean, for God's sake, just about everyone in the town of Stamford had a selfie with Travis. I'm pretty sure all of the air in the community would be sucked out if Travis was taken away over some slight traffic inconvenience. Ultimately, Travis was the personality of Stamford, and nobody would have thought he was capable of any malicious intent in his lifetime. As of now in the Travis timeline, he was a fully grown adult chimpanzee, and the Stanford Animal Control reached out to Sandy during this time and tried to talk to her about the unpredictability of fully grown chimpanzees. Chimpanzees that are fully grown have the strength of about 5 grown men, and that combined with the whole unpredictability aspect of them can lead to dangerous and potentially fatal accidents down the road. People would say that Sandy listened to them and kept an open mind on the matter, but Sandy personally believed that, quote-unquote, Travis never exhibited even the slightest capacity for violence. In March of 2005, Sandy's husband Jerry would pass away from stomach cancer. On his deathbed, he would urge Sandy to consider putting Travis in a sanctuary, as he believed that a fully grown adult Travis would be too much for Sandy to handle. Once again, Sandy felt that void of emptiness open back up in her heart. This led to her to stop speaking to most of her friends and ignore most of the condolences people would try and send her. A year later, Sandy would write multiple letters to multiple chimpanzee sanctuaries in Florida, asking about the future arrangements for them to house her fully grown 200-pound Travis. She would sign the letter Jerry, Sandy, and Travis, and enclose multiple photos of them together in envelopes. Those envelopes would ultimately never be mailed and remain locked away in a drawer. After Jerry passed away, Charla was offered a job by Sandy as a bookkeeper at the towing shop, to which Charla accepted. Over time, Charla's occupation as a bookkeeper would slowly bend into doing yard work for Sandy. Charla did not mind though. She was getting paid a fair wage, and on top of her working for Sandy, Sandy also gave her the loft apartment that was right next to the tow shop, rent-free. Travis was now 5 feet 4 inches tall, and described as by many as morbidly obese, weighing in at a whopping 240 pounds. He had little resemblance to his previous self, as his hair on his belly began to gray and his hairline receded as bad as LeBron's. The bulk of Travis's days consisted of frequent snacking, TV watching, and roaming the house. Since the death of Jerry, Sandy didn't really take Travis out that much as she used to, so he was homebound 99% of the time. February 16th, 2009. This is the fateful day that Travis will eternally be remembered for, and this would be the day where Sandy Harold finds herself cemented in a reality that could only be recreated in a nightmare. This is that incident. It was around 3 p.m. on a Monday, and Sandy was running around the house cleaning up Travis's room because she was supposed to be meeting with a friend later in the day. While Sandy was cleaning, Travis took the keys off the counter, unlocked the door, and ventured out into the front yard where he roamed. Sandy would say, on this one day in particular, Travis was agitated. He had little to no interest in watching TV, coloring, snacking, and just did not find anything appealing to him for a majority of the day. Sandy said this was extremely out of character from Travis because those are all things that he loved doing. Charla was a friend that Sandy was supposed to be meeting that day, and Charla got there around 3:40 p.m. Charla got there, she unlocked the large metal gate that was at the end of the driveway of the Harold's residence and started driving in her small car up the half-asphalt, half-gravel path. This was not the first time that Charla has ever been to Sandy's house. Charla knew Travis and has actually babysat him on multiple occasions. On this day, Charla had a new hairstyle, a hairstyle that she's never worn before. Soon, Charla would exit her very small car holding an Elmo plush toy in front of her face. That toy was something she was going to give to Travis. Travis, who ignored all of Sandy's previous requests to come inside prior to Charla arriving, began knuckle running across the property and closed the 35-yard distance between him and Charla in a matter of seconds. Travis slammed Charla's body into the side of her car. While on the ground, Travis, an all 240 pounds of monkey, pounced on top of Charla. Soon, Travis began eating her face, ravaging her hands, and tearing away at parts of her scalp. Almost immediately, Charla turned red with blood, and by the time Sandy got to her with a snow shovel and repetitively been beating Travis over the head with it, she was already missing extensive portions of her face, and her hand had no fingers left on it. With the realization that Charla was now Travis's prey, Sandy bolted into the house and grabbed a butcher knife. She bolted back outside and stabbed Travis in the back, who was still, at the time, devouring mass amounts of flesh that was once a part of Charla's face. The stab did little to no effect, but in the middle of Sandy stabbing him over and over again, Travis looked back and stared at Sandy dead in the eyes, with blood dripping from his hairy lips down to his torso. He stared at Sandy for a couple seconds, and then his head slowly turned to continue the horrific bloodbath that he once started. Sandy, realizing that she could do nothing in this situation, ran over to her Volkswagen Passat, locked the door, and dialed the Stanford police. The audio that I'm about to play is that 911 call. I must warn you, it is very distressing. Viewer discretion is highly advised.
Stanford 911, where's your emergency?
Oh, this is Sandy. 231 Rockrimmon Road.
What's the
Send
problem?
the police. Send the police.
What's the problem there?
The chip killed my friend.
What's the problem with your friend?
Oh, please.
What's the problem with your friend? I need to know.
Send the police up with a gun. With a gun. Hurry
Who
up.
has a gun?
Please hurry up. He's killing my girlfriend.
What is the problem?
He's killing my friend.
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee.
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
He ripped her apart. Hurry up.
With a gun.
Hurry up, please.
There's someone on the way.
With guns, please. You shoot him.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey's...
He ripped her face off.
He ripped her face off?
He's trying to attack me. Please,
Okay,
hurry.
I need you to calm down a little bit. They're on the way. Can you put yourself away? I don't want the monkey attacking you.
Please, hurry up. Listen to me.
They're on the way, ma'am.
Guns. They gotta shoot him, please. Please, hurry.
Are you there with your friend? I need you to help your friend. Can you go help your
I
friend?
can't. He tried to attack me now.
Is he still there with your friend?
Yes.
Okay, so then back off. Then don't get any closer, okay? They're already on the way.
Please.
If the monkey moves away from your friend, let me know, okay? So we can try to help your friend.
No, I can't. She's dead. She's dead.
Why are you saying that she's dead?
She's dead. He ripped her apart.
He ripped what apart? Her face?
Everything.
Frank Shafari was the first officer to arrive on the scene. He was an officer that have also previously met Travis as a younger chimp, but has not met him since then. He was in Starbucks getting a coffee when a code 3 blasted over his radio. Just himself, he turned on his lights and siren and hauled ass to 241 Rockrimmon Road. He bypassed the gates and arrived onto the site that, in an interview at Barstool Sports, he claimed to have given him PTSD.
One of the seasoned detectives that got there, he said to me, I have never seen a more gruesome scene in all my years. It was that bad. And even when I came back, I gotta tell you, I was in bad shape for about a year. I never knew, like, post-traumatic stress. I didn't even know what that was. I've never questioned it. I've always felt like, not why me did this happen.
Charla's body laid there on the gravel driveway, pretty much naked, with indescribable amounts of facial damage. She laid there beside her car in a pool of blood that looked like about half her blood supply. Officer Frank arrived on the scene. He saw the state of Charla's body, and then when he looked up, he saw Travis knuckle running across the property towards his police cruiser. Travis slammed into the passenger side door, creating a huge smear of blood. The blood went from the middle of the window down to the bottom of the door. Travis tried unlocking the passenger side door, but it was fortunately locked. Officer Frank at this point was in a state of shock. All he could do was watch as Travis rocked his car back and forth like it was made out of tinfoil. Travis then knuckle ran his way over to Frank's driver's side door and opened it. Frank was now face to face with a 240-pound bloodthirsty primate who only 10 minutes prior was ingesting human flesh from a normal person, just like himself. There was a pause for a couple seconds where neither Travis made a move nor did Frank. Frank stated that he was still in a state of shock and that if Travis wanted to attack him at that moment, he totally could have. But both just stopped in their tracks. Luckily, Frank snapped back to reality, no M&M, and withdrawn his gun from his newly designed holster and let 4 rounds ring out into Travis's chest and torso from point-blank range. Travis let out a very loud screech and scrambled away. By this time, other officers have arrived on the scene. They started searching the vast amount of forest looking for Travis, but soon, when they went inside, found a blood trail from Travis's gunshot wounds that eventually led to his deceased body. The extent of Charla's injuries were immensely overwhelming. Many of the officers who arrived on the scene thought she had to be dead, but she was not. Travis had mauled and ripped off her eyelids, her nose, her jaw, her lips, and her scalp, and broke nearly all of the facial bones in her face. Travis ripped off one of her hands and turned it into a bloody stump. He also removed all but her thumb on her other hand. Travis had rendered Charla blind. The last thing she ever physically saw was Travis barreling towards her, and then her world went black. 3 days after the attack, Charla was flown to Cleveland to undergo 15 months of intervention. 1 month after the attack, Charla's family sued Sandy for $50 million. Not to make this all about Sandy, but she was alone once again. No children, no husband, no family, no connection with her grandchildren, and finally, no Travis. Her house, for once, was quiet. The media picked up on the story and belittled Sandy as every day passed. Journalists showed up to her house leaving coffee, flowers, and notes by her door, hoping to see Sandy step out and eventually confront the media. They made wild claims saying that Sandy had sexual relations with Travis and that Sandy loved Travis more than Charla, to which she responded, "I stabbed my own son." Sandy's days grew darker and her nights got colder. Sandy didn't clean up Travis's blood until weeks after the incident. She eventually went on to buy a giant stuffed chimpanzee that she sat in a leather chair across from her, just for the gentle reminder that Travis will always be with her in spirit. Travis's head was decapitated from the rest of his body to further undergo rabies testing. When Sandy went to drop off Travis's old shirts at the crematorium, she broke down at this news. This would be the last day that she ever physically saw Travis. Travis tested negative for rabies, but the University of Connecticut for necropsy found a trace of Xanax present in Travis's system. Sandy, apparently, the day of the attack, gave Travis Xanax-laced tea, which professionals believe could have increased his aggression. Xanax is a short-acting anti-anxiety drug that can also trigger aggression, rage, and hallucinations. On May 24th, 2010, 15 months after the attack, Sandy Harold died from a ruptured aortic aneurysm at the age of 72. Her attorney states, quote-unquote, "In the end, her heart, which had been broken so many times before, could not take anymore." On Charla's 56th birthday, with little cosmetically accomplished on her face at the time, she appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show in one of the most extraordinary moments in television history. Charla would go on to say that she remembers nothing from the day of the attack and fears of how she is looked upon by others. Quote unquote, "I just look different. Things happen in life that you can't change. It's a tragedy." Charla ended up getting $4 million out of the $50 million lawsuit against Sandy Harold in November of 2012. Charla would also attempt to sue the state of Connecticut in 2013, but her claim would be denied. Charla stated that the state knew about the potentially dangerous primate living on the Harold's property and did nothing about it. The state's counter-argument was that at the time of the attack, no statute existed that prohibited the primate ownership of a chimpanzee. The news of this attack spread as far as China and sparked worldwide controversy over the logical ownership of exotic animals as pets. This attack in particular was featured on a segment of Animal Planet's 2010 through 2011 show titled Fatal Attractions, which was a popular TV series that documented a pet's fatal or deadly attack on their owner. Obviously, the incident led to multiple court hearings. The most prevalent discussion that was argued upon was the 2014 Connecticut law that prohibited the ownership of chimpanzees of Travis's size. Attorney Richard Blumenthal argued that the state ignored this law and ultimately allowed this attack to happen. A spokesman from the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection stated that at the time, Travis did not pose as a public health risk and was already being owned before the law took effect. Both the attorney Richard Blumenthal and the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection agreed on the general idea that any dangerous animals should be banned from being kept in any residential setting of Connecticut. pretty much all of legislation in the state of Connecticut was on board for the banning of exotic animals. The Captive Primate Safety Act that was introduced on January 6, 2009 would ban the purchasing or sale of any primate through interstate or foreign sales. The United States Humane Society would also join forces with the Wildlife Conservation Society in supporting this act. The attack resulted in the bill's reintroduction on February 23, 2009. Sharla, after many trials, finally got a realistic face transplant, but still remains financially insolvent from the stockpile of medical bills the attack has caused her. Officer Frank Shafari, who was, as you guys know, the first officer on the scene of the attack, was initially unable to get his therapy for depression and anxiety covered after the incident. This would later lead legislation to propose a bill in 2010 that would cover a police officer's compensation for the mental and emotional damage after using justifiable force to kill an animal. This story is obviously very gruesome, very sad, and my condolences go out to all the families and people affected by this horrific animal attack. If you stayed until the end of the video, I just want to thank you so much because that helps me out a ton. As far as sources and everything, you guys will all be linked in the description. If I missed any sources, please DM me on Instagram and I will include you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Frankie, or Stay Clem as many of you guys know, and I believe in quality content.